got a very important question to ask you guys. We're going to give you three options here, whether it be players, whether it be podcast hosts. You got to choose which one do you want to keep, which one are you going to trade, and which one are you going to cut.
Cut probably the Bengals. I think 100%.
Oh, come on. That's the people's commish right now. He's the one who's been processing all these trades for you guys.
Just kidding. I like the Bengals.
That's all right. I had to take a shot at Jeremy too, since he was actively ignoring an offer from me, then directly ignoring it, and somehow still, flexing on me. But it is what it is. Nonetheless, we got the Panthers, we got the Colts, and we got the Vikings. We're just going to keep rolling with the conversation that we were having just about kind of trades in general. Then obviously there were some couple big trades that went down over the last week. We'll break those down a little bit. And then we've had all these debates about the trade calculator and stuff like that. I want to have a quick conversation around kind of valuation and, what we use, what we don't use, the fact it's a unique league, and kind of just put it out there. Just like, all right, a lot of different opinions about usefulness and utility of a trade calculator or different, site values in this league. Just, a little conversation about what people do and what they don't. But before we get to that, I mean, 'tis the season to kind of buy low and buy on Camp Hype. James, I mean, from the Camp Hype we were just talking about, I was asking about Colby Parkinson for you. And I feel like you've probably gotten like 15 inquiries after you went through the news wire that Sean McVay loves what he's seen in Parkinson.
I'm going to be honest, I hadn't even read that.
I feel like everyone's got like different sets of information this year. Like a couple of times RJ's been on and mentioned like, oh yeah, it's that 49ers running back that everyone's nuts about. And it's like, I'm a Niners fan. I have no idea who the hell you're talking about. But, yeah, it was apparently a camp report. Like Parkinson was standing out as one of like the stars of camp. And then there were a couple of others like that. And, between that and
actually,
on TikTok.
Yeah. The TikTok stuff came out today, right?
Yeah, that's right. That 49, why don't they want me, man? Like, just go full Will Smith on it. Why don't you want me, man?
I honestly still think the belief is they're trying to trade Debo, and they want to keep Ayuk, but I don't know.
Nah, Ayuk's going to the Chargers. It's done deal.
I don't know. The Chargers just gave Lad McConkey the most guaranteed money ever for the 34th overall pick.
Well, yeah, we got to give him that guaranteed money to keep him around. Obviously. That's
like I said last episode, there's only 2 times that NFL teams are not allowed to lie to you. It's free agency and it's the draft. And we get past that season. So from here on out, camp reports are fun, beat reporter, fluff pieces are good, and obviously that's what drives the summer market. But I believe nothing, especially when it comes on a TikTok account.
I would not be shocked if they move Ayuk, or even if they're actively attempting to move Ayuk. I don't think it would happen, but I wouldn't be shocked.
To me, he's their best receiver.
Oh no!
I love Debo. I love what Debo brings to them, but I think Christian McCaffrey can honestly do a lot of the same things.
Yeah.
If they can establish another running back, and they've got other running backs that I think are good enough to establish another running back, you can use McCaffrey on a lot of the Debo type things.
I think it just comes down to, do you have enough faith in Pearsall Cowing to replace Ayuk's production?
Dude, I love Cowing, so I wouldn't be surprised.
That's why I'm saying it's possible. They go, you know what? Rather than paying this guy $30 million for 5 years, we're just going to roll with our rookies and get a first or multiple firsts out of Ayuk. I don't know. What do you guys think Ayuk's worth? Multiple firsts?
No, Roy. No actual team is giving multiple first for any player that isn't a quarterback.
Yeah. This is smoke.
I think Mikey and I are off.
What they're going to peg him to. Like, Ayuk's asking for Waddle money, and the Niners are probably offering him Devonta Smith or Pittman money. Like that's the holdup here. It's not oh these guys aren't going to come to agreement. It's Ayuk wants 28, the Niners are offering 25, and they're going to end up at 27 or something like that. Like that. That's what's going to happen here.
Probably. The problem is of all the names you just mentioned, Ayuk is the best of those guys. I mean, he's better than Smith. He's better than Waddle. He's better than Pittman. I mean, Ayuk's one of probably the 4 or 5 best receivers in the NFL today.
No, I mean, from a route running perspective, there's no question. Like he's been just smoking everybody since he's gotten in the league.
Yeah.
Like he and Jefferson are kind of in a class by themselves. But the Niners aren't going to trade Brandon Ayuk. They're trying to win a Super Bowl when Brock Purdy's still cheap. Like there is negative in unless it's basically like the fake trade that got thrown around today, I think, on the internet was like an Ayuk for Cooper type structure where Ayuk goes the Browns long term. They re-up him. Cooper's got this year kind of left on the contract, can do similar things, and then maybe he finishes his career in San Francisco. But again, draft compensation with that would be kind of more Madden or fantasy rather than real life.
The Niners also don't have anyone to like take on the Ayuk role.
So the rumor is Pearsall is just smoking everybody in camp, which is funny because reading some of the again, depending on what day you read the beat writer stuff, Pearsall is either God's gift or a complete and utter bust. So having that kind of range on feedback from camp, but this guy's going to replace an All-Pro. Like,
I mean, I just don't think Pearsall is like an outside, like down the field deep route runner. That's like not his game.
Yeah, I think it's going to be more of he's a not necessarily a good blocker, but he's a willing blocker, and he's willing to stick his nose in there and just kind of make the tough catch. I don't think Shanahan really has like a type at receiver. It's more of I'm looking for someone who does something really well. It's the old Patriots, give me the elite talent or the elite attribute and let me use that. And then everything else is just kind of as long as it's at a baseline level.
Yeah, I just think that like Ayuk, like the reason he's so successful is because he can smoke dudes one-on-one downfield, and you're forced to pack the box to stop McCaffrey or double Kittle or Debo. Like so, like I mean, Pearsall, I just don't think like fits that role. I think he's more of like an underneath slot guy.
No, the Pearsall idea is it's the same way. This is going to sound weird. He's the Kittle replacement in the passing game. It's if you look at half of Kittle's touchdowns in a given year, it's because he's running some kind of a version of a vertical crossing route, and he gets lost by the safety. He goes in there, the safety goes with the receiver breaking deep, and somehow Kittle breaks behind his back, and he's wide open.
Because there's a 50% chance he was blocking on the play.
Yeah, so it's and again, and he scores, and that's what happens. It's he was not the player's responsibility. He was behind him before he even got into his zone, and next thing you know, he's turning around saying, "Oh fuck, there's George Kittle 15 yards behind me." Like that's what they're going to try and deploy Pearsall to do. Is
you could also argue it's like the Samuel role for like plays where they can't rely on Yak, but they need just like I need you to get open 15 yards downfield.
Or and you just run the right side, and you're going to run a slant across the field, and we might hit you, at the 2-yard point, or the 5-yard point, or the 10-yard point, or on the complete other side of the field. We're not sure, but you're going to run that, and we're going to make everyone pay attention who's covering shallow zones on the play.
Yeah,
but I don't know.
It's definitely going to be a fun offense.
Usually, these guys, but.
And fantasy relevant.
But yeah, 'tis the season of hot takes and everything on that one. So we'll jump into the big trade from last week, and I guess we'll cover the other trades that have gone down just while we're here before we circle back to kind of the broader conversation. So let's see. We did the pod on Tuesday last week, right?
Sounds right.
So that was all right, 5 trades this week. So better than last week because they didn't involve corners all the time this week, which, again, like I said, improvement. Big one that went down on Wednesday. Giants moving out of Marvin Harrison Jr., Michael Mayer, and Jalen Phillips for Marshawn Lloyd. New England's first in 25 and 26. The Jets second in 25, and the Ravens first in 26. Basically the equivalent of 4 firsts and a second for Harrison, Mayer, and Phillips. Anyway, you get, it works out. Like I said, I think we're looking at something like this, and they're basically exchanging each other's challenges right now. The Giants is trying to break down some of these big pieces into, smaller pieces that are of a certain caliber and age group because he's trying to build out his team that way. Pat's like to sort of get big shiny pieces that he can kind of arbitrage down and fill out a team. And at this point, he's kind of all out of arbitrage because people aren't paying up for Drake May like NFL teams were trying to. So I think it makes sense. The arbitrage kind of helps both sides. And then I know Pat's is an Ohio State fan, but I don't think he's going to sit pat with just Harrison. I think he's going to wait for him to sign and then get into camp and let some reports leak, and then it'll be offering him around as a top 10 receiver in the league, even though he hasn't played a snap yet.
I mean, it's a huge win for the Giants in my book. You're talking about what's going to be at least a couple pretty high picks in the first round, and you're moving off of a tight end that just – I don't want to say he's lost his job, but Bowers is being touted as like one of the greatest tight end prospects to come out of college. And that offense is not exactly known for being highly efficient for tight ends as it is. And then Jalen Phillips is coming off of an Achilles tear, and he already has a pretty lengthy injury history. Just all the talent in the world, but he might not stay on the field. So he basically moved Harrison for like three first-round picks.
See, it's all going to be fun and games with everything in Las Vegas. You guys just don't realize what's about to happen. It's influx of cash with them being in Vegas. They could finally afford some things. Their current head coach is better suited as a defensive coordinator. The coach they fired last year is better suited as an offensive coordinator. And there's one guy they could bring in who would be a perfect fit running this kind of offense with that style of defense, and that's Bill Belichick. Is after a couple of weeks, Belichick comes back out the tunnel, head coach. Antonio Pierce goes back to defensive coordinator. They're still paying Josh McDaniels, so they tell him, get your ass back in here and run this offense. You got a no-name quarterback. You got a combination of a pounder running back and a pass catcher. You got 2 strong tight ends in college who could be center points of an offense, and sort of your big name near the end. It's the New England offense from when Randy Moss was there.
It's fair, I suppose. I don't know if either of those guys could be Gronk and Hernandez, but I guess I could see the comparison.
Think about that. Like 2 years ago, when Mayer was coming out, it was nobody. He was the passing game at Notre Dame. Like that was the point everyone was making. It's like, well, he was a tight end in college. Well, he only had 48 receptions. Yeah, because they threw the ball 55 times.
Yeah. The one thing that I always had against May coming out was he didn't really seem to be able to get a ton of separation against NFL caliber defenders.
He's not explosive.
Yeah.
Yeah,
so
like I literally
struggle.
I wrote down Jason Witten. Like he's this guy who's a consummate pro. He can be fantastic. If he was in the league 20 years ago, he could be a borderline Hall of Famer. But in the modern NFL, he's just another tight end too that everyone goes, hey, he actually caught a ball this week.
Yeah, he's good at everything, but he doesn't have that athletic profile to be a dominant pass catching tight end.
Yeah, I agree.
They're gonna be in 21 personnel and have Adams on the field, both tight ends, the backfield or Lobley in the backfield, and they're gonna just be able to do all sorts of shit from that look. And then having guys like Trey Tucker, guys like Jacoby Myers, A couple other interesting pass catchers in that receiver room. I mean, it's going to be
Yeah,
fun.
the receiving weapons are really good. Like honestly, like if you
Yeah.
just look at those four, like Myers, Jacoby Myers, Adams, the tight ends, like it's a pretty sweet 4 targets there for.
I like the
Rucker
Raiders
Racing.
this year. I like Zamir White. I feel like White's going to be kind of an underrated running back this year. Don't tell the Browns. But
Something
it
tells
is
me
all going to come
he's
down to
valuing him
coaching.
there.
Yeah, I agree. Unfortunately, I tried a few times last season. The biggest thing I think is going to come down to is, can Antonio Pierce coach an NFL team for a full season with tape already on his offense?
Well, it just comes down to what I said. Talent-wise, they're not bad, but they also aren't the. You got to go against Harbaugh and you got to go against Reed, and he's not going to outcoach either of them. So they're fighting for third and fourth in that division. Their team's going to be good, and they might sneak a game.
Didn't they beat Kansas City last year in their second game when Pierce had the helm?
They
did.
beat
But
you.
does it matter if they win one? Like, they're going to have to win constantly, and I just don't see them doing it.
It was also the game like didn't Pat throw like 2 pick sixes in like 3 plays?
Yes.
Yeah, it was like it was more of like just like a Pat brain
Yeah.
fart than anything.
Yeah, Pat had a Josh Allen moment. Fuck it, he's open somewhere, right? And just chuck it.
Yeah.
Again, my only point is, hey, he can't beat these guys. Well, what's happened the one time he's played those guys? Oh, he won.
Yeah.
Again, I get that there's a lot of, call it, ancillary factors that happened here. But he can't beat these guys. But he beat that guy.
Yeah.
He did. I mean, that's the fact. Can you do it
No,
consistently? Am I going to bet on it? No. But
I do think it's going to come down a lot to now teams are going to have a little bit of tape on how he runs the system. Teams are going to have a little bit more idea of what to expect, and it's going to come down to, can he adjust mid-season once things start getting figured out.
I'm just excited for the defense. Seeing Max Crosby and Christian Wilkins on a front four together.
Oh, yeah, that's going to be a blast.
I kind of want to go to the Falcons and see if I can get into Wilson. I think he's on the outs on that team anyway, but I just kind of want the player on the other side of those two. Does that guy even get blocked half the time, or is it just kind of excuse me, we're going to be focused over here, so you just kind of please don't hit our quarterback.
Yeah. As the Divine Diablo owner, I'm also looking forward to easier path to the ball for my linebacker.
Yeah, as the owner of every other Raider linebacker, I can concur.
Well, it'll be a fun team, fun division. Honestly, really curious how Harbaugh turns things around and if Peyton is able to salvage anything.
Yeah, I mean, I'm interested to see what ends up happening in Green Bay because I like Lloyd as well. He was one of those guys that the more I watched him on tape, the more I liked him. Even though coming into the process, I felt like everyone was kind of unsure where to put him. He was kind of feeling like in that group of either he could be, RB2, he could be RB15, and anywhere in between. But again, Dylan's on the 1-year deal there, and then Josh Jacobs is probably, basically a 1-year deal too. So he may not get on immediately, but he could be the RB1 there by the end of the season.
Yeah.
It's a craps table. You get out there and you take, 3 different roles or 6 different roles out there, and he craps out 4 times and puts you on a run the other 2.
I mean, they're gonna have a committee. Even if you were RB1, it might mean 14 touches instead of 12, or 16 instead of 12. I don't think it's gonna be he's gonna get a bell cow workload. Even next year, I would expect them to bring someone else in if both Jacobs and Dylan were not to return. But I really like the player as well.
Jacobs has got too much dead cap. He's staying for at least one more year after this year.
The one thing just about this is, in a non-best ball league, the only player I think I want on the Packers is Jordan Love. I will guess wrong on everybody else. There's a reason I don't play daily fantasy and stuff like that. There's 4 or 5 different guys at receiver, 3 different running backs, 2 different tight ends. It is just okay. Who's going to be again? They set scoring records against Dallas in the first round of the playoffs last year, and Reed didn't even get targeted.
Hey, Musgrave had 6 catches and a long ass touchdown. And I
was going to say, I think Musgrave would be my pick of like non-Jordan Love players that I don't. It'd have to be a dynasty team.
I think it just yeah. And I get what he's saying. Like in non-best ball leagues, the only person I want is Love. I get that statement.
Yeah.
In best ball leagues, though, Jordan Love showed that he might be one of these guys who can throw 35 touchdowns a season. And whenever you have a quarterback that can do that, that's fantasy points. And you want as many of his options, his young options, as you can get.
Yeah.
And right now, they've got an overabundance of them to where there's a lot more value in that room than what will reasonably come out. Because even if you have the 3rd, 4th options, of Wicks or Dobbs, Tucker, Musgrave, they're all like highly valued. Like I don't know if you could get any of those players for anything less than probably an early second. And we're talking about the potential option 3 through 6 on the team.
I mean, I bet you an early second wouldn't get it done for, Kraft probably, but like any of the receivers, I don't think so. Like that's like job.
Every receiver is going to be a first if it's Daniels or.
Yeah, and that's just what I'm saying. Like that team and like dynasty format, best ball just has way more value than what will reasonably pay out too. So it's just a very easy place to get lost in the sauce at right now.
That being said, what about Musgrave?
No.
No, and that's kind of the point with Panthers. Like we were talking about Parkinson earlier, and now with Musgrave, it's probably 3 times this year, one of those guys is not going to put up a startable tight end position or startable tight end score. But the 15 other weeks, one or both are going to put up tight end, top 10 tight end numbers. So just kind of playing best ball between the two, real life here, it's a pretty good combination.
Don't forget about my tip.
God damn it.
What is with you and the tip?
Hey, I really like him. I can understand if he's being slept on by everybody else, but there's people that come out of that Shrine Bowl every year where people are sleeping on him and they have a big Shrine Bowl and they're the next guy. And to me, this year it was Tip, so we'll see.
Well, he's behind McBride unless he goes somewhere else.
Yes, but he's a hell of a lot better blocker than McBride. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying he's going to be a top 10 tight end, but I think he could easily be a top 40 tight end. And, that's not bad when the amount of people in this league struggle to have any tight end points.
Yeah, I think he's going to be a 30 to 35 catch, 400 yard, 3 or 4 touchdown kind of player. And those are definitely worthwhile because they'll give you kind of the points out of nowhere for quite cheap. So I think that's a great archetype to have. Plus, you've got the upside ones there. So I think it's a nice tight end room. So, yes, you can call that me admiring your tip.
Thank you.
Nice tip you get there.
All right. Adam Butler for Carolina's 4th. Ogundeji Titans 3rd for Christian Izien and Eagles 4th. And then probably the bigger trade of the overnight that got processed in the morning. Blake Corum and Brennan Rice for Chris Braswell. Jets 25 first and the Saints 25 4th. And then, of course, Braswell jumps right over to Giants for Cam Kitchens and the Jets 25 second. So I break down Corum and Brennan Rice into the Jets 25 first and second, Cam Kitchens and the Saints 25 4th. I'm good with it.
That's not bad. Obviously, I would have been after Rice and Corum. Mostly as a package. I kind of came after Rice initially, but then it kind of felt like Corum had to be added to find a good value balance for a couple weeks.
Yeah.
Right.
We've been around
Rice
for a while.
Yeah, we had Rice. To me, he could very easily be an absolutely nothing, but I'm hearing a lot of buzz coming out of camp. They really like his route running. They really like his work ethic. He has that kind of, just like Lad McConkey, he's got that Harbaugh mentality where he's just a grinder, and he's got, he's got Jerry Rice talking in his ear, coaching him on the sidelines, giving him advice, helping him be successful in the NFL. Because I think if anyone could teach someone how to be successful at wide receiver in the NFL, it's probably Jerry freaking Rice. And then on top of that, the wide receiver situation in LA is so fluid. I mean, you have Palmer, he's coming up on the end of his deal. He's never been a number one receiver. McConkey's a rookie. I love the guy a lot, but you never really know. Outside of those two, Quentin Johnston, as a Chargers fan, I'm super excited to watch him play another season. I don't know. And then Corum, obviously, behind Kyron Williams, but Kyron's got a little bit of an injury history, and I like him.
So I kind of want to see Harbaugh go and pull out an old quote here. Kind of a random walk, but there's a team that at one point I think had Joe Montana, Will Smith, and another kind of famous person's kid as like the starting skill positions. And at one point, Montana was down kind of talking to the coach during a game and stuff like that and coaching some players up. And one of the parents took offense to it. Like, hold on, you don't let any of us come down and talk to you. He's like, fine, I'm willing to make an exception. If you're a 3-time Super Bowl MVP, you're allowed to come talk to me during a game. But if you're not, shut the fuck up.
Exactly. I mean,
so Harbaugh could absolutely be like, look, I don't usually let parents get involved in helping coach the position groups. But hell, if you are a Hall of Famer and all-time leader in every receiving position, I'm going to let you into the room.
Yeah, I mean, he's the greatest wide receiver to ever play the game.
Yeah. And that's the thing. Like, Rice, the thing I loved about him at USC is he wasn't consistent, but he would get lost downfield. And every time shit broke down, it's like, okay, Rice is down there somewhere. That's where Caleb went. And that's why Rice has kind of the touchdowns he does. And that's what this offense needs. You got McConkey, who's going to just feast on routes. You got, your collection of big guys who are going to win you jump balls, and they're going to run the crap out of the ball. It's on the play action plays and the crossing routes. You just need the guy who somehow is going to lose his defender and break free for 60 yards and a touch.
Yeah.
Mike, you already sold Rice. You don't need to.
Don't need to hype it up anymore. Yeah, that's my job now, man. Come on.
Yeah, just to add on to what he just said, though, Rice, one of the big notes I did actually have on him from his tape breakdown was just he is truly special in the red zone. Like his ability to shake a DB with not having elite athletic traits in the red zone was pretty special at USC.
Yeah.
But beyond that, though, I don't know about you guys, but in the larger media markets, okay, especially for football, so Dallas, New York, and LA, I'm a lot more wary of what's coming out of the camps. Like if you're talking about the camp information that's coming out of some of these smaller teams, I feel like the reporters are a lot more in touch than in some of these bigger cities.
It's definitely possible. I think I don't know if you've noticed, there's been very little actual video coming out of the Chargers training camp this year. And I think it's because Harbaugh is very focused on keeping the team focused on itself. No media. We're not really putting out stories. We're not talking about all this, big stuff. He'll obviously talk during his press conferences, but you're not really seeing a whole lot of news coming out of oh, this guy is absolutely tearing up camp and this is the next this and blah, 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 blah. It's not really happening with LA. And I think it's because Harbaugh really wants to impress on everybody his own culture.
Yeah, well, there's not a lot of footage coming out. Yeah, or that.
What'd you say, sir?
I said, or there's nothing exciting going on.
Unfortunately, it's possible. That would be really depressing.
No, it's very real because the Seahawks and Mike McDonald, I've been seeing some of their stuff come through, and they're talking about how they're like 30 to 50% into their install. And they're just like, listen, we're not doing anything out here fancy. We're doing the basics. We're doing the install now. And in a couple of weeks, we're going to do the install again. And then when we come back, we're going to be doing the install a third time. Like at this point with new coaches, there is a real possibility that, they're starting from the ground up to where there's not anything fancy going on.
And, that's another big advantage to rookies. And no one knows the playbook coming into this. It's all new. So.
I mean, yes and no. Like, there's also, if no one knows the playbook, then you also have to, like, figure it out for yourself, right?
Yeah, to a degree.
I mean,
but I'm just saying, like, in terms of an incumbent starter versus someone new coming in, if it was the old system, I think Palmer would have a decisive lead over everybody for the first wide receiver one role. But given that he's having to learn the playbook too, and there's a new thing going on, I think the odds of Lad McConkey or even someone else potentially winning that number one role is a lot higher.
I think you're also ignoring who your offensive coordinator is. The number one role is for the offensive linemen to block and for them to run the ball down people's throat.
Well, obviously, yeah. That's the goal. That's why we have 6 running backs on the roster.
Yeah. Gus Edwards till week 3, J.K. Dobbins for half of week 4.
Yep.
Imani Vidal and Isaiah Spiller for the rest of the year. Frank Gore Jr.
Frank Gore's son's little brother.
Yeah.
Yeah, but the running back in this, Blake Corum, we talked about Marshawn Lloyd earlier, and kind of the thing about Corum that I liked is they did kind of a side-by-side of them at the drills at the Combine. Lloyd and Corum, I think, had similar 40s, but if you looked at kind of the get downfield, make some cuts and stuff like that, they were doing kind of the position drills, like same point in time in terms of time elapsed from the start of the drill. Corum was like a good 5 or 10 yards further downfield as he was making his cuts and moving through the process than Lloyd was, just in terms of processing time. So enough with straight out speed, just like he just gets through things faster.
Oh yeah. Yeah, Corum, I don't think anyone would really disagree that Corum probably has the best instincts and vision in the class. It just became his ability to create downfield without the great blocking of Michigan versus the other guys.
Mm-hmm.
And his size.
Yeah, he's a little small.
Well, yeah, that's part of it. Like your ability to create, by breaking tackles and everything else. But yeah.
And that just absurd spin move. Like as a single play or a single move in college football earned a player more money recently than I'd say the one I can think of last was the was it the Clowney strip sack?
Oh yeah, that was. Yeah.
There was the Ricky Pearsall OBJ fingertip grab that made him a first rounder this year.
Right. Never mind. John Lynch is an idiot. He handles the first round or two and gets things right every once in a while, and then he kind of gets told to go play in the corner, and the real front office takes over.
Yeah, the Pearsall pick was a little interesting. I don't hate the player that much, but I think I would have personally preferred John Coleman there.
I honestly just thought they were going offensive line all day there, in my opinion. Because even, it's one of those things, whether you start them or not, you need someone in the wings for Trenton Williams next year. And it kind of felt like you had a year you could have spent that pick on an offensive tackle and just kept him under Trent's wing. And if you needed him to come play swing tackle, guard, whatever, during the season, you could have. And then you had a long-term replacement.
I mean, these were getting
I don't hate the pick.
At the back of that.
That's where my money was.
Yeah. I think at this point it was just we're trying to win this year, and what player is going to best help that, and that's who we picked.
Oh yeah, I don't hate the pick. It's just one of these things where it's a rare, historic, deep offensive line class. To where I'm talking before 101's even on the clock. My money was on the Niners taking an offensive lineman. Just I thought the value would fall, and it would just be the best available.
So I did kind of roll over them. I don't want to completely ignore the Titans' 2 trades here. Basically trading, we'll call the fourth equivalent, the Eagles 4th and the Panthers 4th. So a 3rd and Ogundeji for Christian Izien and Adam Butler. These seem to be kind of good rotational bets in their respective DE rooms that could hit. But again, these are probably like those DE 3s, 4s, and 5s that you're looking for to kind of round out the roster here. And getting kind of 2 of them and 2 of them for a 3rd round pick isn't bad.
He got a safety and a edge, Mike. He traded away.
Okay, yeah. I keep reading the end there for Izien. Sorry.
Yeah, Izien says corner, but I truly believe he'll end up at safety in Tampa, or he might even get buried. But Tampa's got so many things to fix on their back end that I'm sure he'll play.
That's true. All right, well, we'll get to the title of the episode here, poking some fun at some of the stuff that's been happening in chat. So obviously, a couple of us, myself included, when we look for trade ideas for how we're going to shake our team up, change up the merchandise, all the other things that we have on TradeBait, use some different resources out there. Some people have rankings that they go to. Some people have their own sort of set of values. Some have, deep statistical models that make the rest of us look like we're wearing dunce caps. And some of us use things like trade calculators to help get an idea of what is the market value on certain players and where is their potential for arbitrage. In some recent trade discussions that we have both parties on the pod tonight, clearly the use of keep trade come a couple times. So I figure we're just going to throw it out there of, trade calculators and other column resources in use of these leagues. What are people's thoughts here? So Giants as probably the aggrieved in most of those conversations. What do you have to say about your use of trade calculators and trade discussions?
I think that they are regardless of how you feel about the quality of the data being input, it is still a aggregation of, a third party aggregation of some sort of value to attach to names of players earning fantasy points. Now, I understand the context of the league is slightly different, but if you're comparing a dynasty wide receiver to a dynasty wide receiver, it's not like I don't think the contracts matter as much because there's kind of market value, and then there's just the egregious contracts, which I think are a reason to downgrade the value on a player. But the CeeDee Lamb at 26 mil, whatever he's at, to me, I don't look at that contract as a detriment to his value versus Marvin Harrison, who was 7 mil just drafted on a rookie contract. It's just whatever. So I think that the other argument for not using them is doesn't account for IDP, but we can peg a round value to a player for any position and compare that to a player who was just taken in that exact position and kind of get a rough idea of what a value could be. So if we think that Jared Verse he just went at 201, right? Verse at 201, or was it Turner? Yeah, Verse at 201. You can say roughly, all right, well, that's the 201 value. Who else would be an early second or a late first value for a player, and that could be considered equitable. So yeah. I think it's lazy to not utilize some tools just for it's not like our league. Yeah, it's not going to spit out an exact calculation based off of our league settings, but I still think it's a valuable data input in order to peg your value of a player and provide some sort of benchmark for how it could be valued.
You just massively ignored the largest portion, though. Those values are based off of a 10 to 12 or 14 man team spread of values versus a 32. There are very few teams that have anything close to what CeeDee Lamb is considered valued at, and that the difference is in a 10-man league. Okay, there's 10 of us. Okay, we have to start 2-3 receivers. Okay, we only have to start the best 30 receivers any given week between all of our teams. Whereas in this league, your best 64 receivers have to start regardless any week. And it drastically changes the values and tiers of receivers. And also the cost doesn't come into play, because no matter how much you want to say it doesn't, market value for a player is fine, but being able to trade out of the market value into a rookie deal, a long-term rookie deal, and save $24 million or $19 million in cap to be able to go spend that $19 million on a different, cheaper asset is massive.
For example, if you
could have you could have Keenan Allen and Marvin Harrison for the same cap cost as CeeDee Lamb right now.
Or, Amon-Ra and A.J. Brown, basically. My point is, too, the point I want to make, if you're a contender, right, strapped on cap because you've got 2 or 3 linebackers that are costing about $10 million, you got one of those $15 million DNs, you got a $30 million quarterback, but you can't really afford to drop $26 million on your top receiver. So a guy like Amon-Ra is going to hold inherently a lot more value. Even if he's going to score 80, 60, 30, 50, whatever points less in a year, he's $24 million at least less than CD for this year. And that allows you that much more flexibility to say, now I can go into free agency and add a Rashid Shaheed for $20 million. Yeah, he's not going to put up 350 fantasy points, but he's still going to get, every other week he's going to have a 60-yard touchdown. And on top of Amon-Ra's production, suddenly now I've got 2 guys I can start for the same cap, like James was just saying.
Yeah, I mean, there's 2 points there: the contract value and then the depth. To the contract value part, we all have garbage contracts of like $10-15 million that you could like throw onto any deal to get the cap to equal out. Like I really like, as long as you're like a market value at the position, like I'm not too turned off by a contract. Like the Purdy contract is a albatross of an example, but like Josh Allen at $40 million, like it's market contract for top 5 quarterbacks. They're all paying same amount. Like I wouldn't bat an eye at like having to throw a couple of contracts back to get Josh Allen in order to like have the contract money work out. To the depth piece, I do hear you that like we have to start more players, but that also puts a value on the players who can score you more points per game than the 64th best receiver in the league. So like having the elite production such as CeeDee Lamb's, like 20 points a game, is even more valuable than the fact that you might be starting the 40th and 60th receiver as your 2 best receivers.
Yeah, but you also have the counter to that of just simply, if I have the 20th and 25th and you have the first, you're more likely to have the 1st and 64th, just due to the needing of spreading of value to everything else on your team. Like, any which way you want to go about it, it's fine. But there's no which way to where a player that costs $26 million is worth a top 25 asset and a rookie pick in the top portion of the draft. And, it is real to go back and look at transactions and see what players were bought for and sold for in this league. And it does give a pretty good market for a player. The issue really comes into the unknowns of values of players that just haven't played yet, like the Marvin somehow getting 4 first-rounders in a second, or it comes down to lost my train of thought. But it's just
think about like adding defensive players to the deal, right? If you have a Max Crosby who's isn't he on like a $1 million deal or something?
He's like 5. He's like 5.
So you have Max Crosby, who's still young. He's on a $5 million deal. He's probably going to be on that deal for his entire career, and he's worth a ton.
He's not. He's due for an extension.
Yeah. That's where
expensive next year.
You can't fall into that trap either, because then you end up like the Commanders overpaying for Jalen Hurts.
Right.
No player is safe anymore.
Well, I'm not saying he's totally safe, but he's got a good chance of being safe.
No, he's not going to be safe. He's got to be extended, and there's no way to get away from his Pro Bowl. Like, he's going to get paid. He's no longer cheap anymore.
I thought he just adds like 10%.
He's cheap for this year.
Yeah. No, if you're a Pro Bowler, like, he would have to not be a Pro Bowler to only add 10%. If you're a Pro Bowler, when you get extended, it goes to that Pro Bowl rate to where you're going to be one of the top players. And then even if he doesn't and you don't extend him, then you have the holdouts for being under so many years.
Yeah, you're right.
So yeah, you're either going to get to a point to where you have to tag the player or pay the player regardless now with the new system. There's no longer going to be there's a $800,000 Austin Eckler RB1, a $1.1 million Austin Eckler RB1. It won't exist anymore.
Okay. All right. But even now, let's say, so yeah, he's going to have to get paid. But for now, he's $5 million DM. It's one of the top 3 fantasy leagues in the league. Now, adding that to a trade is going to add a tremendous amount of value. So how do you even try to compare it? Like if I were to go straight Max Crosby for a wide receiver, how can I ever get close to any sort of value for that?
I mean, just think about like what pick value would you need to send to get Max Crosby, right? Like probably a 10 to 15 at latest range first round pick. And so like we have whatever, 3 or 4 receivers that were just taken in that range that like could theoretically be a Max Crosby equivalent.
But I don't think anyone is going to be trading Lad McConkey or Brian Thomas or any of those guys who are taken right there for Max Crosby.
So
The upside's just
maybe
way
that's
too
not
high.
the right range of picks, right? So like maybe it's 15
Ricky
through 20.
Pearsall. Yeah.
Yeah, maybe it's Ricky Pearsall or Polk or whatever was taken like around that range.
So then it
And,
just
like,
becomes
then you probably
complicated when
don't
you're
do
trying to add
that
other
on the
players.
Crosby side. So like that's how you get to the sweet medium there of like somewhere in that range. I just think any defensive player, like we can all put a pick value on, and if we can put a pick value on, then we can translate that pick value to an offensive player.
Right. So what is the 15th overall pick or the 20th overall pick? Like, what does that compare to in keep trade cut? Is that a second rounder, early second, or mid second?
So if you want to do it through keep trade cut I think only goes to the 12th pick. So it's based for a 12-man league, and this is the third.
Like a late second in value.
So you'd have to look, at a late second in value, which does not add up at all, which is just another portion of like he said, he agreed, the IDP portion doesn't relate to KTC.
Yeah.
But the other portion of it too, though, is, the depth, like we said, like you can, like Jaden Reed, BTJ, and Trey Benson, all 3 of those players just equal CD Lamb. The amount of depth and value you get from those 3 players and those 3 rookie contracts compared to just CD Lamb alone, everybody would rather have the 3 players.
Dude, you've made your point. Come on. Come on, man.
Well, it's just okay. I'll say Jamar Chase instead. There, that better.
But like you could have countered for one of like a pick, and there could have been a conversation. Like
I don't have picks.
no,
Are you talking about yours?
Yeah, adding a pick. Yeah.
If you started with a framework like that, I don't think, like me personally, if I own those players, I don't think I'm ever thinking we're going to get close to it.
Why? I mean, Justin Jefferson has gone for 3
kind of a
first round
straw
picks
poll
before.
looking at the
CeeDee Lamb has gone for 3 first round picks before.
It's-
I just sold Mara for 3 first round picks. Like
Just because it's okay, Justin Fields went for the 4th overall pick. Does that mean you're
Come on,
ever going to make
you
that
guys
deal?
just being assholes.
Just because it happened in the past does not mean that that is the value of those.
I mean, Panthers said earlier that we should be using past trades as a way of determining value.
No, you're not wrong, but you're talking about 3 guys that are all worth probably top 16 picks in my eyes, because one went 15th, one went 9, and Jaden Reed is definitely better than some of the receivers that just got drafted in that range.
But didn't we also just say like you wouldn't pay more than an early second for any of those offensive pieces?
I was talking about out of the. We said beyond. Like I was talking about how much value there is perceived in the Green Bay room, and saying how you probably couldn't even buy with an early second a Musgrave, a Kraft, a Dobbs, and a Wicks. I believe most people would have Reed and Watson higher than that. Like myself personally, I think Reed is worth a top half pick at the first. So to me, that was 3 top half first rounders for CeeDee Lamb, which to me is a non-starter. I don't think we've seen 3 top 16 picks for essentially any player in this league, except maybe Marv, but that's also Pats, who does its own damn thing. So,
All right, so take a look around the league right now. Cap space, cap years, and open positions. Things are kind of tight right now on the roster space, averaged about 1.5 to 2 open roster spots, and that includes a lot of teams who aren't exactly trying to win this year, driving that up. Open contract years, again, including a couple teams who aren't exactly concerned about filling out a roster right now, average about 5 or 6 years of open contract years. Want to know about cap space? $850 million of open cap space right now. Take that over 32 teams. You're talking kind of $25 million per in terms of cap space. So to Giants' point, cap space of those is the most available asset. So if I'm trying to maximize the utility of my team, getting some of these premium guys is what's going to make the difference. There's a reason a couple guys are up there every single year. It's because they have the guys who can put up the 35, 40-point weeks at the receiver position when they need them to. And CD's one of those guys. So, of course, there's going to be a premium for him. Are you willing to pay the premium? No. That's not how, me, Panthers, Colts, a lot of people in this league, make teams. But, those teams need those kind of players to win in fantasy. Like, full stop. That's what it is. It's whoever has more of those types of players making those type of plays at that part of the season wins. It's just simple. So those of us who want a ton of shots on those, absolutely we need those. But we also need the sort of flag planting at each position that gives you that receiver one consistent point, like CD, so you can take risk elsewhere. Like you can't have 5 to 8 positions deep at every position in best ball here because there's not enough roster space for that. And there sure isn't enough year space for a lot of stuff like that. So you got to pick your spots, and CeeDee Lamb helps you pick your spots in other spots. So it's a balance between the two, but,
Yeah. I typed in, I wanted to see real quick what quarterbacks would be worth CeeDee Lamb. And Keep Trade Cut has Burrow worth a full, 2,000 points less than CeeDee Lamb. So this is
I
saying
would not
that,
send CeeDee Lamb for Joe Burrow.
well,
but so what quarterbacks would be worth a receiver straight across?
the point that was
Okay,
made about cut earlier with it not working with IDP holds interposition. Like trying to compare quarterbacks and Keep Trade Cut in any of the formats to any other position is kind of folly because it's not a super flex league we're in, but sure as hell ain't a one level of quarterback importance. It's between the two, and there's not a setting for that. So if you're trying to compare quarterbacks using stuff from there, it's going to flop. It's best used for comparing within positions who's kind of the arbitrage of a range and how can I, make something work here. Otherwise, you're going to have to kind of relate it to either to the pick or another player at that position saying, okay, what receiver equals Max Crosby? Is it Jaden Reed? Is it Michael Pittman? Is it Devontae Adams? Like what level of receiver equals that, player? And then base it off of that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I get that. And I don't want to harp on it over and over again. I just think when you start having to jump through so many hoops to make a specific, program try to work for what you're doing with trades, you're almost better off at that point. Just either keeping a spreadsheet of all past trades and collating value or just in your head going, this feels like about right for value. Once you start having to go, well, this is equal to mid-second with the IDP, it's probably close to mid-first, early second. It gets a little convoluted and difficult to try to.
It's the same. It's the same thing that you might just do in your head of just like, this is what I think is roughly the value. It's just like it's slightly more mathematical as a way of trying to like calculate what a value could be.
Sure, but I think that in that case, you can't force someone else to
You can force
hey,
anyone
look at
to take
this.
a trade.
No, I understand. I'm just saying, you can't be like, hey, don't call me out. Look, Keep Trade Cut has this saying it's a good trade. You know what I mean? It's like,
I didn't call them out. I was responding to being called out, which is always how that happens.
And look, I do that too sometimes. It's if a player is off limits or if, for whatever reason, we're not seeing eye to eye on value. I'll quickly look. I'll show my work. This is how I got to it. It doesn't make a difference, but just so you don't think I'm trying to throw this out here to take advantage of it. There's a method to the madness, and that was, you show my work. And I've done that a couple of times. and not intended to be a take this trade because the calculator says it's okay. It's more of a, hey, this is how I came up with it. It's I see an equivalent in value. Like I'm having that conversation with a lot of people right now on Ty Chandler because I see him as a late first level of value right now, and nobody else sees eye to eye with me on that one. So he's going to be on my team for a while, and I'm fine with that. But it's just kind of the, hey, offer me, whatever you want underneath that. And it's kind of like, no, I mean, this is where I think the player is going to go. And if I can't get that right now, I'm not going to sell right now.
That's fair. Everybody has their own biases out of that stuff.
But
there are hundreds of players that you can put a first round value on, like offensive players, whether it be like running backs, wide receivers, tight ends. But there's probably maybe 15 at best that are worth more, that you could argue are worth more than a first. And sometimes when those players are worth more than the first, they get like a ridiculous premium where you feel like you're almost paying double for them.
Well, that also comes into the recently drafted players. Like if a player in our league is drafted, top 10, top 12, top 13,
No, I said that last week. As the person with them, don't be trading them. As the person with that's making an offer for them, they're not wrong. They're just making an offer at the literal worst time because they are rookies that we don't know where they are on the depth chart, nor do we know their production. We know what their draft capital is in our league and in the NFL, but those are the only known things that we have. So as of right now, if you're an owner of somebody that is a rookie, that you should be waiting until they produce, because then you can actually associate like a redraft type of value to them. But I understand why somebody would make an offer for it, and this is the exact time where those are going to seem like the most ridiculous. But it's more of just. Yeah, probably just shouldn't offer for that player because the value's, I don't want to say incorrect, just kind of a big gray area.
RJ, I don't know we condone not sending trade offers as advice for the pod.
No,
Always send trade.
I agree with sending them. So when the CeeDee Lamb trade offer that got posted, when Mike and I talked, I get it. If I'm the Giants, I would probably send a similar type of an offer, and I completely understand why Panthers wouldn't do it, because he shouldn't. And it's the worst time to be sending those offers. In 4 months we could look at that and it could be a bunch of backup wide receivers for a top 2 wide receiver. And oh man, that was such a landslide the other way. And it's just with 2 of those players being rookies, it's really just don't trade them, and then don't really trade for them. But I understand if you are trying to trade for them, because this is the time where it's a really weird time to assess their value.
Well,
yeah.
The other piece of the story that was not shared is that I had a DM from Panthers saying he may be interested in CeeDee Lamb, which is what led to my offer.
And I'm sure he thought that he would be able to acquire Lamb for what one of those premium players was, but probably just didn't assume how big of a premium it gets when you get to a CeeDee Lamb.
Yeah. My guilty pleasure for the last week or so has been, the shitty Netflix, dramas, like the reality TV dramas that Nick Lachey is in charge of for everything. It's terrible TV. It's complete trash, and it's been a guilty pleasure. And y'all are acting more dramatic than they are. I feel like I'm fucking watching Love Is Blind right now.
What about Black is the New Orange? Maybe it's the other way around.
Black is the New Orange.
Black is the New Orange.
Should be the reality TV version.
Blind is the New Orange. Actually, I played rec football, bar football with a guy who was an actor on Orange is the New Black.
Nice.
One of my few random "Hey, I know a guy" stories. Yeah, I'm pretty cool.
I like it. I mean, is there, out of curiosity,
though.
does anyone think that there is currently a player in the NFL that's worth 2 top 15 picks and an additional third or first round pick?
Are you talking about like real life or in our league?
No, in our league. Like, is there a player out there you guys would pay three first round picks, 2 of them in the top 15 for?
There's a handful of them where if that trade happened, I would like it still just get pushed through on the podcast, and like we wouldn't spend a whole lot of time on it. Some of the quarterbacks, the Allen, the Hurts, Pat. It's been so long since Pat has been moved. We all would probably be happy regardless of the price.
That's true. Yeah, I was
what
thinking
did
like
Hurts go for? A second and like a mid first, or the second overall and mid first?
Who?
Jalen Hurts.
Oh,
It was Thule and 102.
Yeah.
Thule and 102. So I mean that right there, you're looking at top 2 pick and what?
So
maybe
before
a
we
late
go
first.
the whole year than now with the 3 first round pick part, let me just read for what the 101s traded hands for this year. The 101 and the 224 for 105, 113, and 126. I'd say that pretty well values the 101 at 3+ firsts. Let's look at another one. Cam Akers, Latavius Murray, Keenan Allen, Luke Masterson, Kendall Fuller, the 101 and the 119 for Saquon Barkley, Patrick Taylor, Michael Pittman, Roquan Smith, C.J. Adrian Henderson, and the 110. Again, 3+ firsts.
Yeah, but that's a bunch of.
Yeah, but Roquan's in the but
The point is, that's a 101. I bet if we went down to the 105, we'd see the instances of an asset trading for 3 firsts. So that means any asset you think is worth a top 5 pick in this last draft is worth 3 first round picks.
that just comes down to quarterbacks, though. Like that's just the Caleb Williams, the T Laws, all those guys when they're coming out. Will someone pay 3+ first for them? Sure, because it's quarterback. You get all those years of cheap production. All these contending teams in the offseason have a lot more time to shuffle around and try to find a way to make it happen. And there's teams that can make all the shuffles and make all these players work this, that, and the other, but you're definitely working with smaller and smaller markets when you get to some of these guys.
For sure.
I'm just kind of saying, what's the addressable market? It's not 5 players. I think it's closer to 50.
Typically, I always consider like the top tier of players some that just don't get moved in the off season because the price tags are so high. They should be bought in season by like from one contender to another, and it should be at the cost of like a premium player and like a first round pick. How many times have we seen Mike build like a ridiculous team and then trade it off, and he downgrades like one tier at wide receiver and gets a first round pick and trades off a Jamar Chase type player, and like those are the type of moves that should be happening for the higher end guys. Is like in season when you are shifting around and you're like, oh, I don't need a 22 point per game guy. I need a 26 to a 30.
Yeah.
We also have the issue in this league to where, I don't know, to me, there are players that should just be untradeable. Like right now, if I'm the owner of CJ Stroud, he's just not available. Or at least there shouldn't be another team in the league with enough assets to be able to buy him. That being said, the Dolphins exist, and the Dolphins have enough assets to buy any freaking body. But whether or not
Dolphins
he's
could
good
buy
or not,
CJ Stroud and still be able to build their team up with a first round pick.
Yeah, everything has its price in this league, or should.
I mean, what would you pay for Stroud? 4 first? That's fair. I didn't even.
I don't think anybody's hit the 4. Probably like somewhere in the 2, maybe consider 3. Probably
I think
3 just because of age.
4 firsts and 2 seconds, I think, to start the conversation.
Yeah, that's.
I think it just comes down to what range of the first.
That doesn't matter.
I think if you're
We're
offering
throwing so
Caleb
many against the
Williams, it starts making it a little easier to get something done. It's like, hey, I've got the first overall.
I mean, at this point in time, we're just about a year from when we'll have like another rookie draft, just outside of that. So right now, I don't think looking at any of the picks is like, is this going to be a mid or is this going to be early? Is this going to be late? Pointless to do it for both years.
Yeah.
You're not wrong.
It's interesting though, because we're saying this about Stroud, but at the same time, CeeDee Lamb's in that tier. Contract wise, different, but we're talking about we'd have to probably trade 6 top 50 picks to get a conversation started about one of these elite assets. So
I just think his situation doesn't agree with that. Like, I think there's just so many other receivers that feel a lot safer to where if I had the ability to go buy one, he's not at the top of the list. Like, Jamar is more than likely tied with Burrow. You got Jefferson has proven he can do it with any quarterback. I just, with Dak and McCarthy and the contracts, I'm not buying Lamb for that price.
no,
I understand if you're like, oh, I'll go buy like Jefferson, but like I don't think Jefferson's moving. Chris isn't moving him. And like if you think Chase is up there as far as production, that's fine. But I do view him as a tier below those two when it comes to like redraft pricing. And
I mean,
like,
does he? If Dak and the coach both leave, does he stay a tier below?
When's Chase been like a top tier wide receiver? What in recent memory, other than his rookie year, has he been like a top 10 wide receiver?
Well, either he's been hurt or Burrow's been hurt basically every other year except for his rookie.
Yeah. So like, CD has done it, and CD's done it. What was this? 2 years in a row, he's been top 5 or top 3.
Yeah, but Jamar. We're talking about a guy in Jamar too, whose lowest touchdown total is like 7, 8, and he's got 1,000 yards every year. Like at worst, you're saying, okay, he's the new DeAndre Hopkins, because when his quarterback's hurt, he puts up this 1,000-yard, 7, 8 touchdown season, and then the only difference is between the two of them is there's actually upside, because he does have Joe Burrow, and it's not Matt Schwab and Jimmy No Throw.
Now, the difference is you guys can send offers to Jamar Chase, and I can't right now because I traded into Texans. So that's
the Texans is just never. Yeah,
he's got picks to spend here, and we got trades to make. In fact, I made a trade on this podcast. So we're talking about trade values. We're talking about what works, and I made a trade on the podcast. That's what I had to say about that.